Hilda Moore of Weird and I welcome you to a rant. Just wanted to forewarn you, I am just ecstatic to read. Okay, I'm sorry, we are ecstatic to read this Notes from the Field to you in this year of 2022, which started out with this theme of learning to listen to love. And as with all things, when you set a sacred intention like that, the universe is going to go, okay, do you really mean that? Do you think you can listen to love while patriarchy is crushing the world around you? And the answer is yes, we have to. We really, really have to. I'm Janet Connor, prayer artist, mystic witch, mistress of the thresholds, producer and director in the theater of the miraculous, here with all of my fabulous witch friends, Joan of Arc, of course, Hilda Moore of Weird, and I'm going to introduce you to a whole bunch more as I read to you this Notes from the Field. It came out yesterday, July 10th, week 28, in which we ask ourselves, am I a heretic? When was the last time you asked yourself that question? Am I a heretic or am I an obedient servant of domination? And yes, those are the choices. Friends, soul riders, mystics, witches, and lovers of prayer, let me say first thank you for all of the whoa emails after last Sunday's Notes from the Field. I do seem to be there's a theme unfolding here. And I'm just going to write and read and share and talk about all of this intense wisdom coming through. If you missed that newsletter, you can click on the link below to get to my blogs. Every newsletter is converted on Monday to a blog post. And so you can always find them there. And if you also come to my Facebook page, my professional or personal Facebook page, they're posted there, as is this YouTube video. My assistant just needs a day to get it ready. So thank you for all of your encouragement and excitement about these very intense notes from the fields. Now, most of you found me through my first book, Writing Down Your Soul. Writing Down Your Soul came out in 2009, January of 2009. I didn't plan that. I actually wanted it to come out sooner. But it turns out January of 2009 was perfect because it was the apex of a global financial meltdown. And maybe because of that very frightening climate, the book touched a nerve. Something happened. All I know is that it surprised me and my publisher no end when it jumped to number one. Number one in the journal writing category and stayed there for 4 years. This doesn't happen. 4 years? This book, my very first book, sold out of its first printing in 8 months. It's now in, I'm pretty sure, the 9th printing, and it came out last July with this new edition, new cover. This is the 3rd cover, last July. And I didn't see this coming, I gotta tell you, when it came out in January of 2009. That sweet book opened a whole path to 6 more books, more to come, and a whole new life as a writer. But in 2008, before that book came out, I couldn't foresee any of this. I couldn't even imagine a life of writing full-time and being paid to do it. I was scared. I mean, really scared. I was afraid I was going to lose this house, and I needed help. So in an angel consultation with Margot Master Markey, Archangel Michael scolded me. Have you been scolded by an angel lately? He scolded me for worrying about money. There's a part of us that wants to go, excuse us, you may not be worried about money, but let me tell you, here on earth, it's a real issue. And he started to shout at me when I kept asking the same question over and over again. And the question was, how am I going to make a living? His response, now listen to this. Every single time I asked that question, he answered the same way, identical words, and his voice kept getting louder as my voice got louder. So I'm not going to shout the answer, but eventually he was screaming at me, "You do not understand how important this book is." I didn't. But I do now. I see now that this book was my life's bifurcation point. I had one life before writing down your soul and a radically different life after. My life before writing down your soul wasn't pretty. You know this if you've read the book. My pre-writing down your soul life was one struggle after another, trying to figure out, who am I? What do I believe? How do I want to live? And how in the world am I going to make a living? Then, after writing down your soul, a whole new life began to emerge. A life that was filled with mystical exploration, radical new possibilities, raw excitement, and honest to goodness, real joy. And the ability to make a living doing something I love. So, what was so special about this book? I did not realize it at the time, but writing down your soul was my initiation into the ancient and very holy calling to be a heretic. Bet you didn't see that coming. Heretic. Well, neither did I. If you had told me that I was a heretic back in 2009, or that writing down your soul was a heretical book, I would have just scowled at you and walked away thinking you were the one that was nuts. The first time I realized deep soul writing was that radical was when we met Marguerite Porete in the Return of the Witches pilgrimage last summer. There she is, holding her book. I don't know that you can see her from there, but she was the fifth witch we met in the Return of the Witches pilgrimage last summer. Now, I knew a tiny amount about her. I first heard of Marguerite Porete while reading John O'Donohue's, glorious book, Beauty. Now, here's what I read, and I want to read it to you. Listen to this. The soul that struggles for the emergence of beauty reaches toward God and labors on that threshold. Now hang on to that word threshold. And labors on that threshold between visible and invisible, time and eternity. The possibility and promise of this threshold is caught wonderfully by Marguerite Porete, the 12th century mystic. Until I read that paragraph, I'd never heard of Marguerite Porete. Listen to this quote from Marguerite Porete. Such a soul often hears what she hears not, and often sees what she sees not. And so often she is there where she is not, and so often she feels what she feels not. When I read that passage years ago, I literally leapt out of my chair because John and Marguerite Porete were confirming my exact experience in what I have always called the threshold between worlds. Threshold is a very evocative, it's a sexy name for the more scientific sounding and also equally accurate mystical theta brainwave state. Threshold between worlds, mystical theta. All deep soul writing really does You pick up a pen, you say hello, you address the voice by name. There are 7 very simple differences between journaling and deep soul writing, and you will drop very quickly into the mystical theta brainwave state. And once you kind of know what that feels like, you know how to get there, you discover there are countless ways to drop into theta. Prayer, real living, vibrating prayer, not the teeny constricted prayers of our various religious traditions. Meditation, staring off in space. I'm telling you, it's a very profound mystical practice. Taking a shower, listening to music, reading mystical poetry, walking in nature, sitting under a tree, knitting, embroidery, any activity that gets you to drop out of that fast-paced, linear, conscious mind and into slower and slower spiral, mystical mind. And sooner if you hang out with me, you will discover the magic well of theta as you slowly wake up in the morning. This is my secret sauce. I lie in the bed in the morning without moving for at least a half an hour, often more, and just lying there doing absolutely nothing, I receive everything I could possibly want to write about, including this very notes from the field. So why doesn't everybody know about this? Because our patriarchal education, corporate, and performance systems are designed to prevent us from discovering this vast well of real creativity. Patriarchal systems goad us, drive us to stay in that hyper-focused, performance-driven state of doing. So my little book turned out to be a radical invitation to, as the subtitle says, activate and listen to the extraordinary voice within. Well, it turns out, not so very long ago, listening to that voice could get you burned at the stake. And that is what happened to Marguerite Porete. She had the audacity to not only listen to her internal divine voices, but she wrote a book teaching others how to connect with and listen to that glorious divine voice of love. Here's her book, The Mirror of Simple Souls. Now, writing this book was a massive affront to the church authorities who demanded then and demand now that God is available only through them. How dare anyone, but most especially a woman, teach others, especially other women, how to activate and listen to that beautiful, loving, divine voice. Now, I really should be ashamed to admit this, but I did not really get how radical writing down your soul was until I read Marguerite's book, The Mirror of Simple Souls. And I learned during the pilgrimage of her just astonishing courage. She was imprisoned by the Inquisition and ordered to renounce her book. The first thing they demanded she do was take an oath to the Inquisition, and she refused to take the oath for a year and a half, living in a dungeon, in a prison, cold, unfed, tortured. And of course, in the end, the church did execute her. She was burned alive, as was my queen, Joan of Arc. I love this mystic witch beyond all. But as much research as I have done about Joan over the past 3 years, I only this week learned that when Joan was sent to the stake, they put a placard around her neck. I read it in this essential book, The Woman's Encyclopedia of Myths and Secrets by Barbara G. Walker. They put a placard around her neck that said, relapsed, heretic, apostate, idolater. When I read that, I really had to stop myself from crying. I could see her in a real thin white heretic's dress and hat, which they specifically put the witches in so that the fabric would get on fire very, very quickly and they would suffer horrific pain. I knew that much, but I didn't know about the placard. I realized as I was reading this about her, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. Am I relapsed? Well, if relapsed means to slip back into a former state or practice, which is what it says in the dictionary, then yeah, I'm relapsed. I'm proud to say I am slipping back into the goddess-centric life and practices of a beautiful world before the dominator religions ruined it. And everything I offer invites you. Slip back with me. We're all relapsed. Anybody who's awake, conscious, and caring, anyone who can see what's going on in the world wants to relapse into a feminine, goddess-centric way of life. Okay, now how about heretic? Now, this is a word that was intended, and I think still does, strike terror in the heart of anyone who dares question the church. The dictionary definition is a baptized Roman Catholic who willfully and persistently rejects any article of faith. Any article of faith? Good heavens, if that's the definition, even the people in the pews are heretics. I wonder who will tell them. And just because you're not Catholic doesn't mean heretic does not apply to you. There's another definition: any professed believer who maintains any religious opinions contrary to those accepted by his or her religion. Well, Hildemore, the whole world's full of heretics. And thank goddess, right? Okay, the third word, apostate. I had to look it up. The dictionary says it's anyone who forsakes his, and yes, it says his, anyone who forsakes his religion, cause, or party. Anyone who forsakes his religion, cause, or party. Well, I have forsaken not just Christianity. I left the church at 19, but at the exact same time, the political party that my radical John Birch right-wing, it's very hard to say right-wing parents, expected me to simply fall right in line into. When I was a freshman in college at Marquette, a Catholic university, I refused to join the Young Republicans. I refused to join the Young Americans for Freedom, and my parents were appalled. Appalled. So, looks like I have a very long history of being an apostate, and I bet you do too. Okay, so the fourth word is idolater. Now, this is not a word we hear very often, so I looked it up to be sure. It means a person who worships idols. I had to look that one up to be sure too. So the dictionary definition of idol is an image or other material object that represents a deity to which worship is addressed. Now, does that mean all those statues of all the saints in all the churches of my youth are idols? How about the cross? How about this symbol that absolutely millions of people wear around their neck? By that definition, every Christian is an idolater. But of course, that's not what they mean when they say idolater. Oh no, they're pointing to the countless figurines and hand-sized statues of the goddess and all her most sacred symbols like the serpent and the tree, symbols that have been revered for millennia before the dominators showed up. So as I'm writing this, I looked around my office. Yeah, there's a few idols in here. I have the life-size cutout of Joan. We're the same height. This incredible painting that Lori Sweet made of Joan and the 13 witches for the Return of the Witches pilgrimage. I have a real treasure here, an antique medal of Joan from France. I love this. Oh, I love this. I have, I don't know, a dozen rosaries and chaplets. Here is one Geraldine Camarillo made for me with the Tree of Life, because there are no crucifixes in my life. I'm happy to say that the crucifix is an idol, but a tree and a Tree of Life, yes. Oh, and here's, how about this for a symbol that would get you killed not that long ago, right? And I have all kinds of chaplets that Geraldine has made. This one is for the Return of the Witches pilgrimage. The first 4 crystals are for the moon, 4 faces of the moon. Then there's 11 beads for the 11 witches. This astonishing amber one is for yourself as you grow into the witch you came to be. Of course, it finishes with and becomes, you can see, it's alive. It's a pendulum. I'm pretty sure that would be considered an idol. Oh, and here's Mary Magdalene. I love her. And I adore this Black Madonna from Oaxaca, Mexico. I have to pick up the Magdalene. And look at this. My son got me this statue from Greece for my birthday a couple of years ago, Medusa. Do you know what patriarchy did to Medusa? She is actually the most beautiful, the wisest. I have all kinds of crystals, including my black Mongolian quartz, a witch's wand. There's holy idols everywhere here. And Hildemore. Hildemore is a needle felt witch doll from England. I can't say that I worship you, although you would probably like to be worshipped, wouldn't you? It isn't that I worship her, but I am absolutely certain that the Inquisition would condemn me if they saw her on my altar. And this is where she always is. She's always right here on my altar. So, am I an idolater? Thank you, Goddess, yes. And I can guarantee you are too. Now, all of this came to mind the day I wrote this newsletter as I was reading The Chalice and the Blade by Rain Eisler. About midway through the book, she starts talking about bifurcation points in history, moments when the opportunity arises amid a world of total chaos, when a small group has the opportunity to shift the culture. We are in that bifurcation moment. Oh, yes, we are. And we have a choice. You have a choice. I have a choice. We can be one of the creators, or we can align and obey the destroyers. It's that simple and that terrifying. Eisler points out time after time in history when violence, war, and domination were on the ascendant under the banner of real masculinity. She writes, one of the most telltale signs that the pendulum is about to swing back is the revival of misogynist dogmas. You think we're there? She also says, more repressive attitudes towards women are predictors of periods of aggressive warfare. Well, now, isn't this exactly where we are? In the United States, in Russia's invasion of Ukraine, in the Taliban takeover in Afghanistan. Everywhere we look, we can see this wrestling match between patriarchy on steroids, which always honors this toxic, violent, warring masculine, and the nascent movements of the rise of the sacred feminine. We may be few, but we are mighty. We are mighty because we know things that the hyper-false masculine dominator culture does not want us to remember. Here are just a few. We know that humanity lived in peace and prosperity in a goddess-worshipping matrilineal way of life for tens of thousands of years. If you didn't know that, I have a book for you. Actually, I have dozens and dozens of books for you. We know from digging up graves from the pre-patriarchal period that there were no weapons. There was no accumulation of wealth. There were no men buried with wives and servants murdered. And yes, they were murdered. Therefore, weapons and wealth are not natural. They're not natural, and they are not essential to life. We know that hierarchy isn't natural. It can only be perpetuated through abuse. Dominator culture has not only ruined women's lives, it's ruined men's lives, and it is utterly destroying our planet. Dominator culture is an aberration in history. It's a 5,000-year aberration, and its time is ending. The dominator story of woman being the source of sin, that was my rant in last Sunday's newsletter, is a lie. It's a lie. And we will not be lied to anymore. We know that women have natural and easy access to intuition, creativity, wisdom, and grace. Maybe that's why women write these books, to activate and listen to the extraordinary voice within. We are wired to listen to these voices of love and life, not just in the books, not just on the page, but around the clock. And when women wake to our innate capacity and sovereign powers, we can and we will and we must create a world that is safe for all. We are here to create, not destroy, love, not kill, encourage, not oppress. We are magic. We are heretics, and we are magic. And the world needs more heretics and more magic. Now, you can tell, I could keep going. I could keep going with this list ad infinitum. And the more I write, the more excited I get about this life ahead, this life that's possible. We are at a life-changing bifurcation point. I guess I should really do it like this, right? I, for one, choose I want to create, not destroy. I am a heretic. I am a woman who hears and listens and follows her voices. I am no longer an obedient servant of the dominators. So I'm calling all the heretics, all the apostates, all the idolaters, all the relapsers. Join me and Joan of Arc as we commit to create a world we actually want to live in, a world we want our children to live in, a world where we remember who we really are, a world where we sing the sacred songlines of the heavens and the earth, remembering the sacred songlines of the witches. I want to show it to you. This is the page on my website. Please come and visit. The link is right below this video. This is a work of love. 3 witches got together. Susie van Menzenkamp, a medium, Emma Kupu Mitchell with more witch skills than anyone I know, and myself, prayer artist and mystic witch. We spent 5 months listening to Joan and listening to our own guidance and slowly creating this work of love. So I invite you to come, take your time. There are videos here, there are definitions, there are introductions. There's even Hildemore. If you scroll down far enough, I'm going slowly so you can, I hope the camera will follow this. Oh, and you've got to play with the moons. Look at this. You click on the natal moon and learn a little bit about the natal moon. And the moon you want to meet, oh, that's Black Moon Lilith. She's the magic. She's a heretic. And what we're going to do together, there's a little introduction to a few of our magnificent witches, including the last queen of Hawaii. And it's very detailed because it's a year-long mystery school. But when you get down far enough, there you go. There's Hildemore of Weird teaching you her take on what this is really all about. Do you have any final words, Hildemore? Come, heretics, apostates, relapsers. I'm forgetting a word. What is it? Come, let us create a world we want to live in. Here's where you are. Make a choice. Create by remembering the songlines of the witches, or be an obedient servant of the dominator culture. I've done that, and you've done that too. And it just leaves us physically sick, emotionally heartbroken, mentally ill, utterly traumatized. No, it's our turn now. Bifurcation point, remembering the songlines of the witches. I am a obedient servant of the dominators, no more, and neither are you.